This video is in two parts. The first part is about 8 minutes long and it contains the full text of a petition constructed by Eton Boys in support of Mr Knowland. The second part is about 6 minutes long and shows a number of petition comments. Dear Lord Waldegrave, the dismissal of Mr Knowland raises a number of concerns for the boys. We perceive in his dismissal some very grave implications about the nature of freedom in this school and the moral stature of those in charge. So that you are able to factor these concerns into your judgement of Mr Knowland's appeal on the 8th, they are particularised in this letter. The common opinion of the boys is that Mr Knowland presented the ideas in his videos with as much academic nuance and sensitivity as could ever be reasonably expected. He makes at least 41 academic citations. His video is arguably a model for how to convey a contentious argument impeccably. We struggle to identify where Mr Knowland's video steps out of the realms of academic debate and into genuinely discriminatory private opinion. The boys have concluded from watching the video that the problem cannot lie in the way he sets out the ideas, but in the ideas themselves. Second, the boys perceive a hypocrisy on the part of the school about its role in the protection of minorities. Mr Knowland is being dismissed for having a different view to the view of the majority. His view is not very uncommon or exceptional. It is simply different. Mr Knowland's dismissal presents as a gross abuse of the duty of the school to protect the freedoms of the individual, especially where those freedoms run up against the norms held by the majority. We feel morally bound not to be bystanders in what appears to be an instance of institutional bullying. Why has the school not extended the protection to Mr Knowland that we would hope it would to any boy who voiced a similar idea, be it on religious or secular grounds? Are the boys also bound by the same restrictions to expression? Should boys who express the same idea as Mr Knowland expect to be similarly dealt with? Is there a difference if this idea is voiced privately or, as with Mr Knowland, in an academic context? Third, in a meeting of the 24th of November, the headmaster explained the test that he applies to determine what kind of ideas are illegal. For him, anything that can be deemed hostile by any single member of one of the school's designated minority groups will be censored. We think this test is too severe. Young men and their views are formed in the meeting and conflict of ideas. A conflict of ideas necessarily entails controversy and spirited discussion. The headmaster's hostility test excludes nearly all of what makes up a liberal education. How can the school reasonably expect teachers to engage in the promotion of free thought inside and outside of the schoolroom when the consequences of overstepping some poorly defined line of acceptability is to lose their livelihood and home? Is this not an abuse of power? Fourth, in a previous meeting with Pop, the headmaster stated his view that female teachers would be in some way compromised by having to discuss the video in class. This appeared to be the headmaster's principal objection to the video. Does this not patronise female staff? The undersigned believe that women are no less equipped than a man to contend for or against the video's arguments. Fifth, the school now prides itself on being a more compassionate place. This is justified. Any B blocker's experience will confirm that the school is more tolerant and understanding than when they first arrived, no doubt as a result of your efforts. However, the dismissal of Mr Knowland, at least on the facts available to the boys, points to a heartless and merciless spirit at the top of the school. Mr Knowland is loved by all who have encountered him. He is an obviously and thoroughly good man. We know he has many children, one of whom is disabled. We are struggling to reconcile the school's opinion of itself as tolerant or compassionate with this instance of cruelty. Mr Knowland's dismissal truly seems cruel. There is a sense that by dismissing Mr Knowland, the school is seeking to protect its new image as politically progressive at the expense of one of its own. If this is true, it points to a complete lack of moral integrity and backbone. Sixth, it is not really the concern of the boys to what extent the teachers can feel secure in the school or be confident in the support of their leadership team. However, the dismissal of Mr Knowland sets a precedent that we would imagine the teachers are apprehending with some deal of mistrust and fear. Teachers have privately articulated to many boys their inability to speak up about this and other issues for fear of being dealt with in the same way as Mr Knowland. Is the school content that this is a healthy environment? Seventh, in the meeting on the 24th of November, the headmaster admitted that Mr Knowland's video was in fact not the real problem and was not the ultimate reason for his dismissal. The headmaster said that Mr Knowland was dismissed for some action subsequent to the video which could not be disclosed to the boys. In the headmaster's words, for what happened after the video, it has been made clear that this subsequent action was Mr Knowland's refusal to take down the video from his private YouTube page. We urge the Provost and Fellows to recognise that the rightness or wrongness of Mr Knowland's refusal to take down the video still consists in the rightness or wrongness of the video itself. If, as the headmaster accepts, the video is not the real problem, we struggle to understand where Mr Knowland has done wrong. In sum, there is no evidence of any wrongdoing in the video, nor in the declining to remove it at the result of a capricious request. Moreover, we believe the headmaster should not expect absolute obedience from his staff. They are not children. It is unsurprising that the headmaster has had to resort to punishment and threats to enforce such a style of government. Those who have signed below do not necessarily support the ideas presented in Mr Knowland's video. We all, however, support his freedom to express them. We urge the Provost and Fellows to rule in favour of freedom of thought and expression. We hope that you will rule compassionately and that you reinstate Mr Knowland. Yours sincerely, the undersigned. On his Twitter feed, the headmaster contends for many contentious causes. That is his right. When Knowland contends by reason and citation, he is sacked. The clue is in the name of the course, Perspectives. What a brilliant, well-articulated argument. It is heartening to know that there are some young people that are still learning to think critically and applying it with kindness in the face of this strange new Orwellian culture into which we appear to be slipping. It is essential to understand and debate the very legitimate critiques of modern third-wave feminism and the concept of toxic masculinity. Critical social justice, radical gender ideologies must not be taught as unchallenged fact. A brilliant letter. A relief to see that the spirit of courage and fairness is still alive at the school, but for how much longer if Henderson remains in post uncensured? Eton was once a bastion of free speech and academic freedom, yet one of the greatest institutions in our nation has abandoned this in favour of a backwards ideology equivalent to blasphemy legislation. Mr Knowland was actually putting the real scientific evidence on gender to his class in the face of mainstream bias. But at the very least he was putting an important counter-argument to create proper debate and reflection. Well done the boys, they always know best. As a civil liberties advocate, I am shocked at the actions of the Provost of Eton College. The freedom of expression of opinions is a fundamental freedom that must not be abrogated in a civilised society. Mr Knowland's dismissal damages the reputation of Eton College and must be reversed immediately. The boys are right, and they put these spineless suits controlling the levers of power to shame. These boys are significantly more impressive than the impression I have of your headmaster. 1241. The letter from the boys is a credit to the school. The same cannot be said for the actions of the headmaster. At Eton, it would appear the boys have taken over responsibility from some lunatic leadership. Will Knowland was an inspiring teacher, well liked by my son. The decision to dismiss him appears mercurial and petulant, and not supported by the evidence on display. The school must acknowledge the error of their ways and work to rectify the situation immediately. Mr Knowland is an incredibly valuable asset to the school, and this injustice sets a dangerous precedent for how beaks are expected to engage in contentious debate with boys moving forward. Dear Lord Waldegrave, a grave injustice appears to have been committed against someone my son tells me was one of his finest teachers. It would be a mistake to compound this for the sake of the headmaster or the school's authority by upholding the decision, and it would have the reverse effect. Mr Knowland must be reinstated for many reasons. It is a pity that the head does not appear to have the same forthright and fair principles as his pupils, who have so cogently and logically argued their case. Mr Knowland should be reinstated immediately. The question of suitability is now one aimed at the Provost of Eton College himself. This teacher should not be sacked for not taking down a video after unfair and unreasonable pressure. For a school that actually has a debating room and values discussion, something as uncontroversial as defending masculinity does not merit censure. Mr Knowland is reportedly highly regarded by the boys. Eton should not be a victim of woke ideology. Might I suggest that if anyone is to leave Eton, it should be Simon Henderson for leading with this pathetic, embarrassing, woke, anti-free speech agenda. Well done, Eton boys, for defending free speech. Very poor, Eton headmaster and provost. Please cease your hateful adherence to the new ideological woke dogma. One might have hoped the provost would have had the wisdom to better advise his head man. After 11 years in post, it is time for him to retire. If you, the headmaster, provost and fellows, have lost the boys, you have lost the essence of Eton. It is their future that you are tasked with curating, and this petition, so forensically expressed, is a signal vote of no confidence in your comprehension of the enduring principles at stake. 2468. If the headmaster is found to have bullied Mr Knowland, then his position is untenable. 2497. Bravo, boys of Eton. It warms my heart to know that there are still young gentlemen willing to stand on principle with the odds of the powerful weighted against them. It seems it's your headmaster who has a thing or two to learn about justice and mercy.